Kye Gutierrez, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you.
Welcome back.
Right.
Cheers to a Sunday, I guess. What are we
It is
cheers?
Sunday.
It's about the holidays, so there you go.
Right before.
Yeah, I've just been doing a run of podcasts for a little while. I'm gonna have like a bunch to put out because I usually do like one a week, and so this will go past New Year's, I guess, which is pretty cool.
Heck yeah. Get it out of 2020.
Yeah, exactly. Because no one wants to do a podcast over Christmas. That's been the thing I've found the most. It's really hard to get people on, and I'll message new people and be like, all right, let's work something out. It's just impossible.
Right.
Everybody's got too much going on.
Well, this year, actually, I feel like I have less going on than I usually do because I'm trying to stay away from my family as much as possible. We're kind of doing an outdoor Christmas situation. So I've just been staying clear of them. I mean, I work at a restaurant, so just playing it cool, not doing the normal tradition stuff. Yeah.
I like it.
Finding new stuff to do.
I like it. That's good stuff. You've been on the podcast before, but never like this.
I know.
Are you excited?
I don't even think I'm absolutely excited. Last time we didn't even do Zoom because the video wouldn't work. If you remember, it was just audio.
Yeah, it was. So that was back when the Rona was first coming about and everything was remote, and I was like, it was tough too because I wanted still to meet people in person, but I was like, I can't ask them to do that. But now you're kind of at a point where everybody can make their own call, so it's like it's up to you. Like, whatever you want to do. Which
is so funny because the numbers are actually so much higher than they were back then. But these days, it's like we all kind of know what precautions to take, and
I think it's more like you know what you're willing to accept in terms of risk now.
I feel that.
Where back in the day, it was like, well, we don't know what the risk is, so how could any of us know what type of risk to accept?
Absolutely.
It's just tough. But at the same time, the podcasting, I actually think it's not too bad, really, because we do sit pretty far apart on most of these episodes, and we've got not a mask, but we've got these microphones in front of us, so there's definitely some barriers. I don't know, and we're outside, so that's good. It's just one of those things. I guess I have to say I'm not terribly worried about it for myself, but I do like to be good for people around me because, again, it's not really, I don't know, it just feels like it's nicer to try to be responsible when I can be.
Absolutely.
But we don't know shit about it.
I'm in this big conundrum. Like I said, I work at a restaurant right now. That's my part-time job. I'm still out of my regular job that I had. It's been, I don't even know how long now. But we have people who come in who are all kinds of different people, right? We have regulars who are like over 75 years old, and we have a bunch of young sorority kids coming in. So it's kind of like I try to take the mentality that anyone who's coming out to the restaurant is mostly taking responsibility for themselves, I guess.
Yeah.
But at the same time, we've been encouraging people to go out to support the local businesses. My restaurant's local. So it's kind of like I try to be as safe as possible because I'm serving people who are coming and trusting our establishment. You know what I mean?
Right.
So it's tricky, man. I don't think any of us know how to navigate it.
No, we don't. We don't. It's been a year. But actually, now that people are listening to this, it'll be 2021, and probably this is all over and irrelevant. Right? In the next couple weeks here, this will all be over.
Is that the plan? I
hear that's the plan. This will be around like inauguration. And as far as I know, coronavirus is done at that point. That's what I've heard.
Send me your sources.
I
need a light at the end of the tunnel.
I'm just being a shithead. I love conspiratorial shit, so I'll get right into it. But what was I going to say? I don't remember. This is the problem. I've been doing too many podcasts. And I've been having far too much beer over the last several days. But I brought some beers for us. You've got one from Wisconsin.
Yep.
What was that called? Shout out.
I got a Farm Girl Saison from Lift Bridge
There you
Brewing
go.
Company.
I think that
really
was
good.
From some friends in Wisconsin when we were there. And then I brought some Modelo's, of course, because I don't know why. I was just in a Spanish supermarket, and I was like, I would like some Mexican beer. Like, let's do this thing.
Heck yeah.
It was great. It was good. They had all sorts of strange food in there that I'd never seen before, too. Like giant fried pork skins. But not giant, like the size of a plate. You know what I mean? Is that a thing? I've never seen that before.
I've never seen one of those.
Looked pretty good, to be honest with you. At least today we have glasses, though, because I have done an episode recently, and I broke the number one rule. When you have the foil on the bottles, you're not supposed to drink it out of the bottles. That's why they do that.
Really?
You know that?
Do you know why?
Well, yes, I do, because Avery Brewing in Colorado does the same thing, and I've taken their tours and everything, and they say they want it to be annoying. Like, they want it to look like, don't put your mouth here or you're going to get foil in your mouth, so that you pour it in a glass, and then you get the scent. You get, like, the whole experience.
I've definitely gotten foil in my mouth.
Yeah, me too. Me too.
Huh. All right.
Last time when I broke all the rules, drank beers anyway. But it is a gorgeous day. We have warm days coming in Tucson, which I appreciate because it's actually been freezing here.
Hasn't it?
Have you been keeping up with your outdoor yoga? Tell us what's going on. First of all, let's not even talk about out there yoga just yet. Just tell us about your yoga. Where are you at?
Man, my yoga has taken quite the journey in 2020. I was right before lockdowns. I think I was the most regularly practiced student of yoga, meditation, everything that I have ever been in my life.
Mhm.
I was on the A game, teaching multiple times a week, and even just doing my out there yoga and everything. Personal practice at home, everything was solid in terms of where I would like to be
Right.
with my practice to keep me kind of where I want to be. And then when shutdowns happened, that kind of literally went down the drain real fast. Not only because the studio closed and I couldn't go see my teachers, but because I was no longer teaching. So
Yeah.
for the first time in 4 to 5 years, I stopped teaching multiple times a week, and I had a break from everything to do with yoga. And at that time, we were up on the mountain camping a lot. I think I said that in the last podcast.
Yeah, you guys were basically just
Yeah.
living up there because why not?
It was awesome.
Yeah.
But when we were doing that, I truly felt less of a need to practice regularly because the practice gives me so many similar benefits as camping and backpacking and being out of
Sure.
the city. So I didn't really, quote unquote, need it as much. And then the stress of everything really got heightened. I mean, after the toilet paper and all that, the stress of it started to get really intense. And
Yeah.
one of my teachers has always said, you don't need your practice, but when you need your practice, you better hope you've been practicing.
Oh,
And I got hit in the face with that real quick because
That's
the
nice.
anxiety of everything and not having a job, not knowing where money's going to come from, the whole shebang landed on my plate. And I was like, man, I need to be practicing. And it took a while to get back into it. Right now, I've been practicing a lot at home. I've been back to meditating every day. Thank goodness. It does so much for me. And then my teacher, Annie, through the studio here, Yoga Oasis, has been doing rooftop classes outdoors. I go once a week. She does them all the time. And it's gorgeous. I mean, we watch the sunset up there. It's
That's cool.
such a blessing to have that.
That's cool.
Mm-hmm.
I'm having a hard time working out in Tucson, I'll be honest with you. I've been going to jiu-jitsu, so I'm there most days. But I think that has also started to become an excuse to not work out on my own because I'm like, well, I did jiu-jitsu. Or I'm like, well, I'm going to be too tired for tomorrow's class if I do a workout now. But also, when I wake up here, it's freezing. And I'm one of those people that has a real hard time working out any other time of day than like first thing in the morning. That's when I need to work out. I don't like it any other time. It doesn't do the same thing for me at all. And I just can't get into it. And I'm dying here. These desert nights are killing me.
And you guys are in the RV, so you would definitely be working out outdoors.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
It's cold.
I don't blame you, man. I was in such a good spiel of good routine of walking my dog every morning and getting that out of the way. I'm the opposite. I'm a nighttime worker outer. I even practice yoga at nighttime most of the time, which is why I do the sunset yoga classes. But I feel for you because I think motivation for all things physical kind of goes down the drain when it's freezing outside.
Yeah.
And not only that, but the days are shorter. So you're
Yeah.
working with such a smaller time frame to get that in.
Yeah.
Yeah, I feel you. It goes to your head a little bit when you
Yeah.
stop working out.
Well, it's just an excuse, isn't it? I mean, it's just another mental excuse of like, oh, I can't go work out because of this.
Mm-hmm.
And I just didn't need any more of those because we've already got enough of those. You know what I mean? We've already have enough things that we're like, I don't need to go do that because of this. But it's not the best. I think I just need to probably embrace it and go out in the cold and just do it anyways. But I like to make lots of excuses like that. When I go running, I wear barefoot shoes, like sandals. So it's not just like it sucks. It's more like, am I gonna lose a toe? Kind of cold out here these days.
Yeah, man, I'm wearing some barefoot shoes right now.
Yeah, I know
They
you've
got,
you work with a brand, don't you?
Yeah, Wildlings. Wildlings is awesome. They have these homemade or handmade barefoot minimalist shoes. But these ones, their winter and fall collection, are lined with wool, and it's all sustainable. So they're nice to the sheep. And I even have wool inserts in them. So that's what I take when I'm like walking my dog at night or something
Yeah.
like that. And it keeps my feet so nice.
Yeah,
And I
that's
still
pretty
get the
good.
benefit of the barefoot.
Yes, a lot of people are not turned on to that just yet. I think it's happening though. I think the conversation's getting out there, and they're starting to finally make the shoes not look quite as goofy. I feel like that's another big part of it. Is like for a while they were like, I mean, because the original was like the Vibrams, like the 5-finger things. So you're like making a statement that you're like, yeah, I'm doing this thing, this minimalist footwear. But now it's starting to become more popular. Like even, I feel like even when Nike's putting out shoes, they're talking about how lightweight they are. They're not really doing like giving you wider toe boxes yet, but they're starting to talk about that kind of thing. I feel like, right?
I haven't kept up with Nike. I mean, I used to do the what are they, the free runs,
Yeah.
the airs. I used to wear those a lot. And actually, those naturally kind of do, if I remember correctly, they kind of do have a naturally wider toe box.
Okay.
But a lot of the heel lift, which is such a big deal for me and my foot issues, I'm learning. I'm no pro. But from all the literature I've read and everything I've learned about it through working with wildlings, I've learned that heel lift, meaning the part of your shoe where your heel sits is higher than where your toe sits,
Mm-hmm.
that puts so much weight in the front of your foot that it kind of changes the way your arch works, and it can actually collapse your arch muscles. Assuming I'm saying this correctly. It has done so much for me to rebuild my arch muscles over the
makes a lot of
last
sense.
year.
I need someone to make some barefoot boots that I can ride with, because I still have to wear like traditional boots to ride because they're sturdy. Like if my foot, like that's the crazy thing about riding is you really got to think about what happens if I hit the ground, because it's a very real possibility. So if you have like a sturdy boot, your ankle's not going to be able to like spin off. You know what I mean? If you like hit the ground and you've got nothing on your feet, like people who wear flip-flops when they're riding, first of all, your skin on your foot is gone. But then also your ankle is just going to bend in whatever direction the asphalt takes it at 60 miles an hour.
I've never thought about that before.
It's not a fun thought.
That's absolutely terrifying to think about.
Yeah.
But even riding my bike, I never even thought about that. And
Yeah.
I mean, obviously the crash wouldn't be
Well,
most
if you're
of the time
going
as
down
intense,
a hill
but
at like 20 miles an hour, it's not going to be great. It's
yeah.
going to be great.
Oh my god,
Easily
I
break
never
an
even thought.
ankle.
What kind
Yeah.
of boots you were riding?
These are just, I don't know, they're just whatever brand Kohl's sells.
Yeah, Kohl's shoes.
Sonoma. Does that sound right?
Yeah, I don't
They're
know.
they're just boots.
I used to get boots at Kohl's. That's part of what messed. I'm not gonna bash Kohl's right now. I got boots
it.
from whoever, doesn't matter. But they had the heel. They were so stylized.
Mhm.
They looked like those cute Western boots. And I wore those. I kid you not. I probably bought 6 pairs of these things over the course of like 8 years.
Yeah.
And I wore them every day,
Yeah.
no matter what. Going downtown, walking my dog, because I like the look of them and the feel eventually. And I swear that's what messed up my feet.
Yeah. Did you have to get rid of a bunch of shoes when you kind of made the switch?
All of them.
Yeah.
I got rid of all of them.
Yeah. That was hard for Andrea because she already didn't have that many shoes to begin with. And then
Mhm.
we started doing this thing and she was like, oh, now I have to buy new shoes to replace the very few shoes that I already have. And it was just, it's a hard thing to try to take your health to like another level. I understand why we all try to avoid it so hard. But at the same time, I've always been that kind of person where if I learn something that is a fact, it's very hard for me to then not act on it. Like if I learn, okay, this is better for your foot and here's all the reasons that's going to make a huge difference in your health and even like in your knees as you age and all sorts of things, I can't ignore that anymore. I'm going to have to do something about it. So sometimes if I actually want like a break from getting into like, from having to do everything healthy and perfect all the time, the thing I need to do is stop learning new shit. Like I have to cut off new information sources because I'm like, you know what? I don't have time. I don't have time to learn something new right now because if I do, I will have to change my entire lifestyle overnight.
I feel that it's kind of like you have to give yourself boundaries around when you dive into certain things and knowledge and stuff like that. But I think that comes from the fact that once you're conscious of something, you can't undo that.
Yeah.
So then if you're kind of an honest with yourself conscious person, you can't ignore the fact that what you're doing is bad for you because that's a conscious thing that you're pushing that knowledge away instead of being oblivious to it.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yep. Yeah.
Tricky.
I struggle with that. That's a hard one for me. But I don't know. There's some things where it definitely makes your life better. And I'm not trying to be perfect with my health. I'm not like trying to go all out because I'm not trying to live forever. I'm not interested in like have you ever heard isn't his name Dave Asprey, the bulletproof guy? Have you heard him talk about aging and all these different things? And he's like, I'm gonna live to be 200 and something years old. Like maybe, I guess, I just have different goals, I think. You know? Like when I hear, here's a really good one. When I hear people talking about meat and like, don't char your meat. Don't cook it until it blackens or anything like that. Don't get a crisp on it. Anything. Cook your bacon. Well, your bacon should be all loose and wobbly. That's how you want bacon. It's like, okay, for health reasons, I get what you're saying. You know, carcinogens, that's no good. But fuck that also. Like, I would like to eat a burger that has a really good sear on it. Thank you very much.
Absolutely. Even coming from me, even vegetables, if you do them on the grill, if you don't have char on them, they probably don't even taste good.
Just mush.
Yeah.
They're just
Absolutely.
mush. It's called the Maillard reaction, people. Is a very, very important chemical thing that happens when you apply oil to something and it burns and it browns. It's
Maillard
why
reaction.
things taste so good.
Interesting. I never heard of
Yeah,
that.
it literally releases thousands of additional chemicals, including carcinogens,
Mhm.
but most of them are things that we find really, really appealing because originally that's how we started eating cooked food, was because we're drawn to things that have been charred, things that have been burnt.
And do you think that has anything to do with the fact that when we started cooking food, obviously it was like we were realizing that it took away a lot of the danger of like the bacteria in food and stuff like that, and so we would maybe overcook it to make sure that we weren't going to get sick from it?
That's
Just
possible.
theory.
But I think that the better theory, when you think about like what separates humans from animals in terms of our evolution, our ability to do more, like our guinea pig at home is a really good example, Mose, who you need to come over and meet, because he's very dumb, but also he's pretty cute. All he does all day is he has to eat all day. He has to eat hay all day and eat vegetables all day. He cannot stop eating or he will literally die. And it's true for a lot of animals that they just have to be grazing constantly, eating constantly, because they can't get enough calories from raw food. Once you start eating cooked food, the caloric level of those foods is going to be so much higher that you can eat a meal or two a day, and then you have time to do other things, like think about your existence or make tools or anything like that. So there's one of my favorite arguments for why humans evolved to be sort of thinking creatures and have the ability to reason is that we started cooking, that was what we had. So I would say that the appeal for us is knowing deep down evolutionarily that something that is cooked, that is charred, is just better within our diet than something that isn't, and then is raw food. But
I feel that. I buy that. I also man, I wish I had a source for this. I was sitting around a campfire with somebody one time when we were camping, and he said that a lot of our ability to contemplate and think abstractly came from when we learned fire, and we would sit around fire, and all of a sudden it made things so much simpler, and we had time to be warm at nighttime. You know, we didn't have to just go to bed and like huddle up when it was freezing. We could like sit around and think around a fire and like share conversation after the day was done, after hunting was done or whatever. Like I said, I don't have a source
there's
for
a
that,
lot
but
of
I like that.
there's a lot of really good theories about that sort of moment in human evolution. I can see that being one of them because that's sort of just basic like hierarchy of needs, right? It's just like, okay, well now I have shelter, I am warm, I'm safe, animals aren't bothering me the way they used to. I've got light, so like you're saying, I can extend the daytime. You've got more like control over that. That makes sense to me too. Another one is psychedelics. A lot of people really get into the idea that psychedelics were the first thing to sort of help us evolve language, and that would be a part of this. I don't think we're ever going to know that there was one thing, and I doubt if there was one thing. But I really like thinking about the one that really draws me in is thinking about food, like the idea that maybe we were monkeys who like you think about a forest fire. After a forest fire has passed, you've got charred animal remains in that fire. You've got charred roots and vegetables or whatever. If you go and then eat that food, all of a sudden you have a higher caloric source. And then if you can start to capture that fire and realize the fire plus food equals I'm nourished quicker, then so that one I really like that theory of things. And I
Never even
don't
thought
I
about
don't
that.
have really experience with psychedelics, so I can't speak personally to
gonna
that
ask
level
you.
of things. No. No, I don't. I have no idea. But I know that Terrence McKenna is the guy who wrote. No, not Terrence McKenna. Oh, it's either him or his brother. I think Terrence McKenna is the one who wrote this book called Food of the Gods, and it was all about like mushrooms in particular.
I'll have to
being
read
the
it.
thing. Yeah, I got you. I get you some books. We did books last time, didn't we? On our last episode, or just
We
throwing
did.
books out there.
I don't know
read
if
too
I
much.
threw any books out there. I read a ton. I don't read a ton. I read a ton compared to some of the people in my life. There's people who definitely read way more than I do. But I spend like probably 20 minutes every morning just I'm reading like 4 different books right now.
Yeah.
But I spend about 20 minutes a morning just going into whichever one I'm feeling.
Do you do fiction or nonfiction, or just you switch based on how you're feeling?
I've been doing nonfiction for like the last 10 years. I used to only read fiction when I was younger, growing up. And it's funny you asked that because just recently I picked up probably the only series I kept. And it's nothing, I mean, no one will know it, but it's the only series I kept from when I was younger that I really fell in love with. I just really loved the way the author wrote. Her name's Kye Constable. And yeah, it's just one series that she wrote, and I started reading it probably about a month ago. I love it. I still love it.
What
And
are they called?
it's called The Singer of All Songs. It's one of those like fantasy about some world with like 10 moons. It does
Okay.
just one of those, but
Nice.
just the poetic way she writes. And I didn't think that I would have the attention span for it these days just to read fiction, but
Mhm.
actually, I love it. Still enjoy it to this day.
Yeah. If you get good fiction, it really works. Like I love a good sci-fi because we're not really talking about the story to an extent. Like we're also talking about concepts, and that I can really get into. Or like a really good novel where we're like again like exploring philosophy. Like Aldous Huxley is one of my favorites. He wrote this book called Island that is just insanely good, and it really just dives into like everybody knows Brave New World that he wrote,
Yeah,
which is his dystopian version of things, and this
especially
would be
right now.
yeah, everybody's super familiar. Brave New World, 1984, getting quoted a lot right now. But Island would be like his utopia, and so it's just awesome to see how this writer sees humans in their like best form. It's phenomenal. It's phenomenal.
Man, I'm gonna have to read it. I actually didn't even read Brave New World. I read 1984 and a couple others like Animal Farm.
Hmm.
But that was one of the ones that skipped. I don't know if I should read it right now. That's another one of those. You have to be kind of selective about when you choose to subject yourself to certain things right now. Otherwise, everything sounds like it's against you.
Yeah, it'll just start to spiral. It can make you depressed for sure. Like the
Yeah.
right book can definitely make you sad.
Mhm.
Brave New World's a good book. I didn't connect with it all that much. I mean, I get what he's saying, and it is pretty dark. A lot of it is, I don't know. I feel like he did it better in Island. I really feel like that was his opus of like, here's how things should be. Brave New World's more like, people are kind of losing their ability to think for themselves, and they just sort of everything's about pleasure, and they're all sort of, the state kind of tells you everything that you should think about their class system, and
I see.
that one, yeah, I could see that getting kind of depressing right now, but it's not, I don't think it doesn't apply that much to coronavirus. You know what does is actually V for Vendetta. I watched that movie when this whole thing was starting up, and I was like, this is really, really dark.
Had you ever seen it before?
Yeah.
See, I had never seen it before, but actually, when it was like back in August, my boyfriend Nate was like, "You've never seen V for Vendetta? You gotta watch it. I'm telling you, it's what's happening right now." And I was like, "Stop!" And then we watched it. I was like, "I mean, I have boundaries around what conspiracies I allow myself to think, but I see you." Like
Yeah.
that was intense.
Yeah. Well, I don't know. I love conspiracies. That's the
Mhm.
thing, is you have to start by saying, I like conspiracies, and I don't think the entire world is one giant conspiracy, but it's really fun to think that it might be,
Yeah.
know?
As long as it doesn't get to you like mental health wise and like you can
Right.
kind of keep yourself sane about it. I mean, I know quite a few people who go off the deep end about it, which
Yeah.
is fine. I just think that it can be almost a habit to allow yourself to think that everything's against you.
Hmm.
But on the other end, I'm always promoting question everything, so I do,
Right.
So
Right.
yeah.
That's a good one. I mean, I still don't know if we've settled whether this virus was man-made or not. But even if it was man-made, I don't know if it was man-made to do what it has done.
Right.
But I do think some powers have been some powers have been seized during this whole thing that make me pretty nervous.
Yeah, it's kind of weird. Like it's almost like this has exposed how you can't figure out that was a car that just went by. We're outside. You almost can't or this time right now has exposed how difficult it is to find facts, right?
Yeah.
Cuz the internet has made it so wonderful that we can all share whatever you want, but at the same time, we used to believe a couple sources were like hard fact, whether that was good or bad, and these days it's like you can have that confirmation bias about almost anything you could find evidence to support almost anything you believe
Yeah.
at any one point. And I flopped back and forth at the beginning of all this being like, okay, the whole world's being taken over. It was man-made and we're all going to be in concentration camps in 5 years. And then I'm like, actually, I think that we're probably just over it. You know, I've gone back and forth so many times
Yeah.
that I finally am just like, I'm learning to surrender to all of it and say, whatever comes. And, you know, I don't want to be that person with the conspiracy theory that said, ha, I told you so. Like, I have no
Right.
interest in that.
I think I'm less interested. I'm still interested. I like thinking about causation of events, but I really like looking at outcome of events from a conspiratorial side of things because I feel like it's far more important. Because the truth is, you know, potentially there's some group of people, there's some Illuminati who makes things happen and then sees everything in advance, what's going to happen, and can predict it and mess with people. They can be like, we're going to create this virus to do this thing, whatever. I'm far less interested in that than saying, okay, well, the world is pretty chaotic. So let's just say it happened. Let's just say it happened and maybe nobody started it, right? But then the outcome is very interesting. The wealth gap increasing is very interesting after this whole thing. Amazon making billions and billions and billions off of this lockdown is very interesting. Small businesses shutting down like crazy is interesting. Senators who dump their stock when they find out about this right before it happens is interesting. So I'm far more interested in like the outcome of like, that's all some that's shady shit right there,
Yeah.
as opposed to like, oh, they did it. Because I don't think we're ever going to know that. And it's probably pretty worthless to, you know, to know it or not. The point is what actually happened. And what happened is some rough stuff happened.
Absolutely.
Ugh.
Yeah. I think going back to whether it was man-made or not, that's kind of ties back in. It's like, I don't think we know. We don't know. There was somebody on the Joe Rogan podcast kind of a few months ago. I think it was at this point, who knows? It was a few months ago, I think. And he was saying how they have proof that it was being worked with in the Wuhan lab. But then there's people who say, like, no, it came from, like, a wet market or, you know, so it's almost like you can find evidence saying both ways.
Right, you totally
Very
can.
weird.
Yeah.
Very weird.
Right.
So, like you said, it's not more about, like, the bigger picture of, like, where did this all come from, but more of, like, so what's going to happen because of it?
Right.
You know?
Well, I would think anybody who's smart enough, if it's, let's say it is some massive conspiracy, it was started by someone, it's still a real disease. Anybody who's smart enough to do that, to manipulate the world in that way, start like biological warfare, all that stuff, is smart enough to cover their tracks. And you don't cover your tracks by eliminating all the evidence. You cover your tracks by making the evidence confusing, by making it so that some people will believe your version and some people will believe another version. So the fact that we have evidence of both things, it means we're never really going to know either way. Like, we're never going to have a definitive answer either way, as far as I can consider. But I think that's a big distraction compared to the outcome. Like, what you really don't want us to know is what happened because of this thing, whether you started or not.
Yeah, I've had that thought actually within the last couple weeks. I thought, you know, if there was some big overarching conspiracy theory, which I'm not denying it might, you know, I'm all about it. Let's go there. But if there is, I think these days it would be, it sounds weird I don't know if this is the right word. It would be almost like ethically done. Like, I don't think besides losing, obviously, all the people we've lost and all the jobs, it's like we're not going to know that we're being attacked is kind of how I think of it. It's like technology, all of like the quote unquote spying they've done on us all this time. They just know too much about us and our way of life. I don't think we would know, and I don't think that I don't know if we ever will. I think it'll be so covered up, so confusing that it's just going to seem like a way of life. And these people who are the puppeteers are just so good at what they do, truly, that it would all just kind of be like never actually found out. They're just too smart at this point.
Right.
And like you said, like Amazon blowing up, Big Pharma, all that. They just have too much money, too much power. I just don't think we would even touch the surface of what's actually happening. So what do? Then you just live your life knowing that like stuff like this has probably been happening for a long time. And, you know, the same way that you can think, like, I heard somebody say the other day, and it made a lot of sense, that we've kind of outgrown nuclear war, that's like so primitive compared to what's going to be happening in the future. And we think of these days as being more peaceful, obviously, but maybe it's just because the control and the war is happening in different ways. I don't know. It's like, I feel like every time I think about it, I just go down this different rabbit holes and think like, well, obviously my brain, I'm not that smart. Like, my brain's not going to figure it out. So why stress about
You're
it?
never going to have enough evidence to figure it out.
Yeah.
One person could never have the evidence that it would take to see it all.
Maybe Alex Jones. I don't know.
Yeah, he's got all the documents. He's got the documents. I would love to have a good Alex Jones impression.
Yeah, dude.
That'd be so great. Yeah, man, it's I love that we've started going down this rabbit hole. This is so great today. I'm feeling it today. I'm feeling it. My mind's loose.
Yep.
Um,
This will be your last couple days.
yeah, it probably is. It probably is. Doing too much drinking. It's the holidays. I'm allowed to drink.
That's
right?
what they say. Heck
Yeah.
yeah.
I love drinking on an empty stomach. That's
Oh
my
my
favorite.
God.
My favorite. I'm a real cheap date on an empty stomach. So I'll usually drink like before dinner as opposed to drinking during dinner. Mm-hmm.
I'm weird. I don't like drinking. I mean, I just have a messed up stomach all the time. I can't digest anything. I'm one of those people who, like, give me like some plain bread and some vegetables if I know I have to go do stuff the rest of the day, because otherwise I might have a stomach ache. I probably drink too much, more than I should, but if I'm gonna drink, I usually do it after food, and then I don't like mixing food with it afterwards, because then it just sits way better in my stomach.
Interesting.
Weirdly, you know.
Nothing after beer.
Yeah,
Right.
or nothing after alcohol in general.
That's
Yeah.
interesting.
Except water.
I'm the complete opposite. Complete opposite. Have you gotten into sourdough yet?
I haven't. I feel like it's like the pandemic. Everyone's getting into sourdough.
I'll get you started if you want.
Yeah,
I've
heck
been doing it
yeah.
for a few years now.
Let's do it.
The episode just before this one, which I recorded the other day, was me talking with a sourdough baker here in Tucson who has a book coming out on sourdough, and
Nice.
she's phenomenal. And we really dove into it. So, but I can get you started. I have a starter. You can have some of
Heck
it.
yeah,
Get it
I'm
going.
down. Isn't it
not hard.
supposed to be one of the better, in terms of digesting, one of the better breads that you can eat?
It's the
That
only
true?
type of bread that's good for you to digest. I mean, that's just the truth of it. You're using wild yeasts as opposed to this one strain of yeast that we use for everything, including beer. And when you make it yourself, you also know what goes in it. So, like picking up a package of bread from the grocery store is just nonsense what they're putting in it.
Mm-hmm.
So, bread should ultimately just be flour, water, salt. Some people say flour, water, salt, yeast, but the yeast comes from the flour if you're using sourdough. So you keep a starter that you keep alive all the time, and all a starter means is it's just a mixture of flour and water that you give fresh flour and water to regularly, and then that has basically a colony of bacteria in it that will rise your bread for you. They also process that gluten and break it down so that it's super easy to digest for people. So like if you do it my way, I do it with a really long ferment. So it's got a long time to break the gluten down and make it super digestible. It's like a second stomach happening first is what we talked about in the last
That's what
podcast.
I need.
Yeah. And then the other thing is it changes the glycemic index of bread. So when you're eating bread normally, your blood sugar spikes to a certain percent. When you're eating sourdough, it does it far less. Even a lot of people who have like legitimate Crohn's disease can handle sourdough bread. The gluten does not mess with them.
That's so dope.
Yeah.
I mean, I've heard little snippets of this from different people, and I've somebody who've just kind of cut out bread from my diet for the most part, just because, you know, I drink enough beer. Like, I don't need bread messing up my stomach, because I do tend to think I am one of those people who unfortunately are a little sensitive to gluten. Who knows if it's the gluten or if it's just like the processed breads and all that, you know. It's not that simplistic, but I would be so curious to try it.
I did that I ate gluten my whole life and felt really rough, and I gave it up for a while, and I was like, I feel better, but I also started losing weight. And I don't actually try to lose weight. That's not very good for me,
Me neither.
generally. And then I started getting onto sourdough, and I was like, oh, this is fixing all my problems. I don't know
Awesome.
why. Yeah, I'll get you into it.
I'm so down, dude. Let's do it, because like I said, I feel like you can scroll whatever social media you want these days, and somebody is making their sourdough bread. And I'm
Yeah.
like, what is with the sourdough?
I just think people make it harder than it needs to be, frankly. Like, the way I do it is really low-key. Like, I make basically what I will do is I'll make, like, dough once a week, and that'll give us 2 things I can make out of that dough. So usually I'll end up making, like, a pizza, and I'll make some burger buns for our burgers.
Nice.
That's the bread I will make. And then if I'm having fun, I will also make us some, like, bagels, or maybe I'll make us some cinnamon rolls or something fun, you know. But some people just make it so complicated. They make it look complicated. They make all the scoring designs and all that bullshit. Like, I like it. It looks cool. You just don't need it. Like, sourdough can be done really, really simply. But I think that that's part of it. Actually, interesting transition here, because I think that that was one thing that kept me away from yoga initially, was that it feels insular, and it feels like there's a level of knowledge you need to have to start doing it. And the in crowd keeps the out crowd out. And I think people do that with sourdough too. They make it seem like this is incredibly complicated and there's math here and there's all these things you need to understand. You don't. It's a little bit of practice and it becomes like just an instinct and it all makes sense. And that was the same way I felt about yoga, and I'm on the other side of that, which feels good too.
Yeah. Have you been I can't remember. We just saw each other. Are you taking classes or do you do online stuff?
No, I just have used YouTube. And again, I've been very bad lately because I haven't wanted to go outside.
Me too.
Like, you should see my 6'4" ass trying to do like mountain pose inside my RV that is 7 feet tall.
It's 7 feet
on
tall.
The inside, maybe.
Yeah. So like, you mean if you like reach your arms up overhead?
I got nothing.
Yep.
I got nothing. Yeah.
I'm fit. After Andrea fits.
She does. But I have to go outside. So, yeah, I have not been very good. But no, I was just using YouTube, really. Because I don't even feel like I'm good enough to go. I'd love to try some hot yoga at some point. It's intriguing to me.
Yep. I still have never, I mean, I'm not going to say never. I did try a couple different classes. I didn't love it. My teacher, Annie, when we had the studio open, would keep her class between 82 and 85. And she would have me keep my class at, because I was teaching kind of her strain of yoga. And that felt extremely warm. That felt very warm, 85 degrees. And these other classes in the studio were between, I think, 78 and 80, if I'm saying that correct. And that even sometimes in a packed room felt very warm.
Yeah.
And so at a certain point, I'm all about like Wim Hof, the very cold, and then like, I think you mentioned before, like the heat shock proteins and stuff, like very hot. But I think what happens, obviously everyone's different. Their body works optimally at different temperatures.
Right.
But at a certain point, you get so hot that your body kind of switches, and this is just my theory, I don't know the science, but your body kind of switches into this like almost panic mode because it can tell that you're too hot. And what'll happen is like your vision gets a little blurred maybe, or it gets harder to take a breath, and maybe you're just a little more dizzy, so balancing is difficult. Up and down gets harder, like if you reach your arms up and then fold, and that kind of can make you dizzy. So for some reason, I just have never gotten over that hump of like, oh, okay, now I see how I can keep this sustainable. For me, it's always just been such a challenge.
Right.
And sometimes even in that 85-degree room, it's like, I'm at my max. Like I'm sweating hard and I'm moving. But again, it would just take some time for me trying it, I think, to figure it out.
I invented the cheapest sauna possible.
How? Your truck?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That was what I was doing. When I was doing those remote episodes, I would have to go to a Walmart parking lot just south of town here. That was pretty close to where we were staying because I didn't have good enough Wi-Fi in our RV at that time.
And Walmart has Wi-Fi?
No, but I have a router that I take with me, and I was close enough to town, and I can park in the back of a Walmart parking lot and not bother anybody.
Gotcha.
But I'd turn the engine off so that, first of all, I'm not just like wasting gas, but also so that there's no like fans blowing for the episode. And I was like, this is the cheapest sauna of all time. Like, crack a window, you're not gonna die of lack of oxygen or anything like that. And you're going to get very hot very quick, especially here. As long as the sun's out, you're going to get really hot really fast. And I was like, this is not a bad idea. But why aren't we talking about that? I guess because it's not that controllable and because like people die in cars. But if you're not an idiot, it's totally doable, right?
Yeah, I guess you can't really measure the temperature in your car. So maybe it's 150 degrees and maybe it's 300 degrees.
Buy a thermometer and or get, I don't know, or just try to be cognizant of it. I think, as long as you're not like a child or a dog, you'll probably realize like, all right, I'm done. This is good. And it doesn't take that long. You don't need that long in a sauna to get some benefit from it. So that's kind of all I was doing for a while, but I haven't done that in a minute. I should though. That'd be fun. That would be a lot of fun.
I don't know how hot you'd get right now. I mean, I get in
With
my
the
car and I
sun
turn on
going.
my seat heater. I'm ready in the morning.
Yeah, I get that first thing in the morning, but like with if it's like midday and the sun's out and it's not super windy, even if it's pretty cool outside, it'll get hot in that car pretty fast. That's
true.
At least in my experience.
Like today, I think if the high today is like 75. It's been in the 60s, but today's actually a little warmer. Thank goodness.
Yeah,
I have all my windows open.
I keep trying to brag about like I'm in Tucson. It's so warm, but this time around it's not. Like last year, it was so much warmer. But it's still better. I mean, this is like fall temperatures. This is actually a nice fall compared to most places. Like,
Yep.
then I go and look up, like, all right, how's Denver doing today? Oh, -degrees and it's just snowing. Cool. Yeah, no, screw
Don't
that.
look at
I'm
Denver.
fine.
Denver's always like,
Well, that was the old home. That was like, okay, this is what I would have today.
Right.
So I got to feel better about where I'm at.
Where's
now.
worse? Like Maine, Alaska, Montana. Otherwise,
Even just go
Denver's.
to the Midwest. Even just like my old hometown in Illinois they're having a pretty cold winter. I mean, did you see how much snow happened in like upstate upstate New York?
No.
They had like 41 inches of snow in this one town.
41.
Yeah. Yes.
That covers your house almost.
Yes. Yes. It's insane. The videos of people like taking snow off their roof and like roofs caving in from snow. It's not good.
Oh,
That's
my God.
wild. Yeah. So I'm cool. I'm cool here. I'll hang in Tucson and complain about 40-degree mornings and 70-degree afternoons. I'll be all right.
I've literally had a beanie and my sweatshirt on inside. I think we keep our house at like the lowest it gets is 64, like in the morning when we have had the heat off. And I get out of my bed. I'm in like my beanie and my sweatshirt. I'm like, somehow we do. I do camp when it's
Yeah.
like 20 degrees. I don't know how I'd survive because at the beginning of winter, it's always like I'm dying. And then
Right.
maybe like 2 months in, and it's not even winter yet.
Right.
But about 2 months in, like come January, when we go camping, it'll be so much easier. But for that first chunk, we like just coming off the summer, fall, having such hot temperatures, our bodies acclimate. I mean, I could go for a hike in the middle of summer here, no problem.
Mm-hmm.
And then it gets cold and I'm dying.
Right.
So
yeah. It's
different
all
bodies.
it's all context too. Bodies get used to it, I guess. Holidays will hit. We'll all eat too much sugar, and we'll bulk up a little, and that'll be good for us. So it'll get easier. It's funny when I'll go to jiu-jitsu and everybody's just so cold here, and I'm there and I'm already sweating. I've just walked in the door and I feel the heat on. I literally feel that there's furnaces blowing heat, and I'm like, you guys are kidding me, right? Like we're about to wrestle. This is so hot in here, and they're all like, oh man, it's cold today. It's crazy. I'm like, screw you guys.
Tucson people.
Tucson. You
Born
drive
and
me
raised.
crazy.
Born and
I don't know
raised
where
Tucson.
I'm from anymore. I don't know even how to answer that question with people anymore.
I don't know if you have to be from anywhere these days. It's 2020. You're allowed to just be a nomad.
Yeah, a lot more people are doing it.
Mm-hmm.
When are you going to do it?
I don't know, man. We heavily considered it when Nate and
I
I's
know.
work went off at the same time. We're both hospitality. We went off the map back in March. And I mean, it was a solid 2 months there. And we're like, should we just go? But of course, back then, that's when it was so frowned upon to travel.
Yeah.
And we were like, well, we're going to have to stop at gas stations to get gas. We're going to have to whatever. And we decided, no, I guess we're just going to chill out. And we overthought our trip. We went up to the Pacific Northwest back in the end of September, and we're like, are we bad people? And then, at that point, enough people were like, you can travel safely. There are ways to do it. And, so much of when we travel, it's not like we're staying in hotels. We go camping. So we finally got over that hump, but then he got called back to work pretty quick.
Mm-hmm.
And that kind of flushed that down the drain.
Yeah. That's the nice thing about RVs and campgrounds and things like that is you really can do it without coming in contact with very many people. It's not like I'm seeing that many people. It's really pretty
Probably
relaxed.
safer than being in the city.
Well, and they say planes are safe now too, because they circulate the air and it's all sterile, and so they say that's not even bad. But you can get plane tickets to anywhere for so cheap, which is pretty cool.
I was trying to go to Hawaii until I found out they make you quarantine for 2 weeks. I'm like, so you can get a $300 plane ticket, but then you got to pay $1,000 for your hotel to quarantine for a little bit, and then go camp on the beach.
Yeah,
So.
People are very judgmental about the travel thing too.
Mm-hmm.
No one was super mean to Andrea and I because it's like, what do you want me to do? Like, this is how we live. I don't have a place I can just go crash for a while. That's not going to happen. And we're doing our best, and basically we just tried to stay away from any hot spots or anything like that. But
In Florida.
we did go to Florida though for a month. But I'm not gonna lie to you, it was kind of nice.
Yeah, you
kinda
get a
nice.
break.
Yeah,
People in
things are
Florida are
kinda
just
normal.
like, yeah, I mean, it's fine. I mean, not that, I don't know. I'm not for or against anything, but
What's
It's kind
funny
of nice
is
to have that break in the middle of it all.
even this conversation is going to be out of context by the time it comes out. So people are going to judge us
Mhm.
differently.
Right.
Isn't that strange? Opinions can change that quickly. It's going to be a couple weeks and you're going to be like, what are you guys talking about? It's like, yeah, well, we're not in January. We're not on January 12th or whatever.
Right.
I don't know what that looks like. Do the holidays spike everything like crazy and everybody's sick all of a sudden? I have no idea.
Yep.
Or have the vaccines come out and why are we even talking about COVID on this episode? That's dumb. That's in the past. I don't know.
Man, I hope the vaccines work.
Yeah.
I hope they do what they say they're gonna do.
Yeah. Are you going to get one?
I don't know, man. I like to say I want to hang back, but like, how long do you hang back? Like, what's the actual time span?
That's the thing
to
is we have no
see?
idea.
Like, ideally, I'd wait 50 years and see what see what it plays out like. But obviously, we can't do that.
Can you wait until you're out of the COVID danger or until you're into the COVID danger zone? Because we're currently out of it, aren't we? We're not really in the zone of this is super dangerous. You've already had it.
Yeah. I don't know. I
Yeah.
mean, numbers here, I don't know how you keep up on them. I don't even know, where do people get this information? Like, what numbers? Where do you look? You know where I look? I look on my Weather Channel app. They have an update for like flu season stuff every year, and this year they have like a COVID update. So they'll tell you what percentage of the numbers are increasing every week
Oh, okay.
in your local area. And so right now we're at like 14% increase, which is way higher than the 3%. I believe from what I've read is I don't know, who is it? The governors and stuff, they say that under 3% means that we can be soft opening and things can be a little more lax. But when it goes over 3%, which the jump happened about a month ago when we jumped up to like 10, 14,
right.
then it's like, okay, it's everywhere. But if it spreads as fast as they say it does, in my head, 14%, that doesn't last long. Like it would be 28, 50,
Right,
like
exactly,
to
in
me, it would
theory.
be like very quick.
Right.
But hopefully, what I like to hope, and like I said, I'm a simpleton, I don't know, but what I like to hope is that if it spreads as fast as they say it does, and we were increasing like we were, and there is that hope for people like me who have had it, who can no longer contract it, or at least can't for a long time,
Mm-hmm.
that we are reaching some kind of little amounts of herd immunity in certain areas. That's kind of what I hope. And maybe that's what's stopping the spread. I don't know.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, I like to think that I'm immune at this point, but I'm also very open to the fact that there have been people who have reported to have it twice. I like to think it's very rare. But I'm no scientist. I don't know.
Yeah. No, this podcast is admittedly all bro science.
Yeah, exactly.
And also it's mostly nonsense. And also the real thing is I went on a real long tangent about this on a previous episode about how I really appreciate podcasting for the fact that there's so much nuance to it. Like a long form podcast, we can have this conversation and it feels like it allows people to understand that we're also both humans here. And so we're doing our absolute best. We believe in taking care of ourselves and doing our best to take care of people around us. And if new information comes up, we'll make decisions based on that information, and
Right.
we'll just do our best. And I feel like that is a problem. Like if you want to go back to all the real apocalyptic fun shit we were talking about earlier, is that is not how it works when it comes to social media, where it's try to put out the shortest, quickest soundbite possible, because you lose all the nuance of the fact that we're just humans. We're not really. No one knows the answers. Like we're not really making a declaration about what are the answers here. It's
Yeah.
just sort of like this is kind of what I think in this day right now with the
This
information
hour.
I have.
Yep. I feel that. I don't think we're like monkeys with technology. We're not supposed to have all this stuff. So to expect us to have the right answer of what we share, what we don't, it's like, listen, this stuff came out 20 years ago. Like, we don't know how to use this stuff yet.
Yeah.
Don't hold me responsible. I don't know. I'm just
Yeah.
making the best decision I can each day.
Right. And take care of yourself also. Just like do what you can for yourself. Like meditating and yoga and getting outside and getting sun, things that are proven to help, I don't know.
Yep.
I feel sad. We're talking about sad things today.
Honestly, at this point, it's kind of sad that it's no longer sad to me. It's just like, this is a real life thing. Like you do just have to learn to take better care of yourself. I'm not talking like physically, which obviously that's part of it, but take more responsibility for yourself and your own choices in your life. And then let other people off the hook. Like, let other people make their own choices.
That's such
and
a key fucking thing.
Yeah, like
It's
stop holding them responsible
Yeah.
for what happens to you.
What you feel is right does not have to be what another person feels is right.
Yeah.
It's like there's only a very few things we all agree about in terms of what is ethical. Like murder would be one of those things where we're like, all right, I think we're all pretty sure that one, we're all good on that one, right? but you can make an argument for almost anything else. And the truth is, as long as someone's making a decision for their life that is not hurting other people, that's their decision to make, you know?
For sure. That's what I think. And if it's kind of comes back to the just like, especially this pandemic, it's like if somebody is making choices that you don't agree with and you feel like they would harm you with their choices, well, then make choices for your life that get you away from those kind of people or like that make you safer, I guess.
Right.
I don't know. Like I said, no one has answers right now.
Nah.
We don't know. So I just take care of myself, my family, and just do the best I can because, I don't want to be responsible for the whole world. That's a lot.
It's the circle of concern versus the circle of influence.
Yeah.
Very simple to understand the things that you actually have control over versus the things that you are worried about. And you can be cognizant of those things that you're worried about, and you try to be responsible for other people when you can and do nice things. But the truth is you've got a very small window of things that you really have under your control.
Yep.
And I think a lot of people will be a lot happier if they realize that. And I need to realize it all the time too. I'm not trying to act like I know this either, because this is also one of the things I don't know, and I'm just going to do my best. But it's not the easiest thing. On a lighter note.
Yep.
What do you think about aliens? I feel like you have thoughts on aliens.
Dude, what was that thing they found in the middle? Was it in the middle of the desert or
The
something?
monolith
What is
in
that?
Arizona.
I didn't look into it. What
Some
is it?
other one popped up somewhere else in the world too.
Is
It
that
was like in
somebody
Ireland or
trolling?
something.
Is that a trolling hard? That is
What do you
so
think?
cool. I don't know. I didn't look into it that much, honestly.
Maybe it was me.
Yeah, it was you. You just dropped it off the back of your bike. I definitely think there's aliens. I am not under the impression by any means that we're the only ones out here in this huge, expansive universe.
For sure
no
not.
way.
For sure not. But to a level where they would have visited our planet.
I think that if anything has the technology to get to our planet, meaning they've been around much longer than us. Either they've been around longer than us or they have been much more efficient with their time. What do they want with us? Like, if they are out there, that means there's other creatures out there, which means there's probably infinite creatures much more intelligent than we are. What do they want with us?
So this is when you were talking about like even the idea of nuclear war is sort of like old school compared to what's really happening. I don't worry that much about nuclear war because I've heard these stories of supposedly UFOs messing with like nuclear launch sites.
Whoa.
Like it seems like there's some sort of connection between if there are we call them aliens, but I don't know really what that means. Not humans, whatever, or with not human technology. It seems like they don't like us using nuclear weapons. That has been historically something that's come up a number of times.
Maybe they're here to just like chill us out. They're like, these animals blowing each other up. Like, that's not how you do it.
Right? Right? I'm even with all of the alien stuff, and I feel like more of it's coming out more often these days and coming out faster and better, and it's getting really interesting for sure. And again, when this episode drops, maybe we'll know that there's aliens or something, right?
Yeah.
This will be like
We'll meet 'em.
a landmark thing. We'll be talking about this right before it happened. But I'm still far more sold on the idea that we're in a simulation than anything else. Or even that we're in multiple simulations than anything else.
Oh no, multiple simulations. Do you watch Rick and Morty?
No.
Okay, you should.
What is it?
Rick and Morty?
Oh, no.
You don't watch it?
Uh-uh.
Dude.
But is that what I need to get into? If I love simulations?
They just make a lot of jokes about it. Just look it up. You would like it. It's a cartoon. It's out there. It's a little crude, but it also has some very intelligent humor. I think it's one of the more genius shows that have come out recently. Yeah, I'll leave it at that.
Where is it on? Is it on Hulu or something?
It's on Adult Swim. And I
Okay.
think AdultSwim.com is like, since the pandemic, they've been like just streaming it for free all day, every day. You can just tune in at any point. The premise is it's the grandfather and his grandson, but the grandfather's like a super smart scientist, almost like a god at a certain point, and he travels the universe and he brings his grandson along to go, do journeys and missions in the galaxy with him, and it's hilarious. It's hilarious.
Like if Back to the Future was a cartoon almost.
Kind of, yeah, yeah. And they just do very, very intelligent humor. They tackle a lot of just like basic human issues and social issues, and not like South Park with the social issues, more just like how human design is, and very psychedelic, very just kind of out there. I think it's hilarious. I like to sit down and watch it. It can have some very heavy topics, so it's not super lighthearted, but it'll make you laugh.
So does any of that get into your head when you're I guess not when you're meditating, but because in theory you have nothing in your head when you're meditating, right?
Not true.
No, really? Okay.
So when you're meditating, I mean, ideally, I'm sure there's people who meditate who have been doing it a long time who get their head pretty damn clear when they're meditating. But meditating, the point of it, in terms of what I understand and what I go for, is trying to catch yourself when you are thinking. That way, you're just, like we said earlier, when you're conscious of something, it's hard to... What were we being conscious of earlier? You were something about... I don't remember. But when you become conscious of something, it's hard to not... Or it's hard to do that thing because now you know you're choosing to do it even though you know better.
Right.
So when you're meditating, if you can practice catching yourself thinking, then you're like, I'm caught in thought again. Don't let yourself do that. You know that's not you. That's your monkey brain just doing its wiring thing. And if you can get in the habit of catching yourself when you're thinking, then you stop being so controlled by your thoughts.
Right.
Because you notice that it's thought happening, not you, whatever you define yourself as being. It's your brain on its repeat habitual patterns kind of occupying your consciousness as opposed to you being present and allowing yourself to like exist with, the presence around you.
Okay.
If that makes sense.
Well, so I feel like there's two different types of meditation that I'm familiar with. And one would be what you're describing, which is like recognize that you're thinking, but ultimately try to make no thought happen. Like get to a point where you are so good that like no thought's really happening. But then another version is like you're meditating about something. Like you are choosing to focus on one concept in particular and having like very quiet time with just that thing.
Yeah.
Is that another way to go about it?
Yeah, I think it's
not very practiced in meditation.
I don't know there's different kinds. There's kinds where you say like a mantra. So there's like mantra meditation where you kind of similar to what you just said. You would either have a certain thought or a certain phrase that you kind of repeat to yourself over and over, and you have all of your awareness directed at that one thing. That's one way of thinking of it. That way, you're not necessarily going for zero thought, but you're going for a very narrow window, which gives you more expansion in that one window. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And then there's also like pranayama, which is manipulating your breathing, which is supposed to have all kinds of different health effects and cognitive effects, where you can just focus on watching your breath, manipulating your breath, having it do certain things, in for certain counts, out for certain counts, different things like that can also occupy your mind. For me, the way I think of it is just being in control of dictating where your awareness is and setting aside a certain amount of time, whatever it is, 5, 20 minutes, 30 minutes, it could be whatever, where you make sure that you spend that time directing your focus. And that time practicing doing that allows you to then do that more so in the rest of your life or the rest of your day.
Okay. I still don't have very much experience with meditation, which we talked about last time, I think, which was my goal was I was going to try. And I have tried. I've done it a few times, so I'm not completely new to it now. But the big change I think I made since we last did an episode was I stopped allowing myself to stream things. So I think when you grow up at the time we grew up and streaming something on like your phone becomes accessible, you start to almost rely on that. Like in high school, I definitely relied on it to like help me. Like you're so mixed up in high school. You just need to like stop thinking and stop worrying. And so you're like, well, I'll just like play The Office in the background while I do my homework because at least I won't also be thinking about other things, right? And I think I got into a pattern where I was doing that so much. So since we last talked, I stopped doing that entirely. I'm not allowed to watch or listen to something while I'm doing other things.
Wow.
I do let myself do podcasts and audiobooks. And I think the biggest difference is that those two things make me want to do stuff. So like when I'm listening to a podcast, I'm like, all right, what am I going to do now? And I'll go and I'll be like, all right, I can work on this thing, or I can go outside, I can work on the bike for a minute, I can go for a walk, whatever. As opposed to when I was streaming, it was very much like, well, I don't need to go do that stuff. I'm just going to like watch this show. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I do.
So I feel like that
have
was
had
step one.
I've had that same conundrum recently. Since lockdown, I was podcasting my ass off for months, and I started noticing. And I'm gonna make a touch on here. I don't know that much about ADD. Truly, I haven't really looked into it, so I'm not making any weird claims here. But I think so much of what ADD can be is a habit of the mind. And if somebody has like predisposed, like messed up chemicals in their brain, or their brain is just wired different, that's one thing. But I think we can almost these days make ourselves ADD, meaning we aren't good at putting our attention where we want it to. So therefore, taking some of our attention and putting it on something else so that we better focus on something we're doing becomes more attainable, because we're so used to multitasking. We're talking to somebody, we're scrolling, and then maybe like while we're scrolling, that's multiple different things, right? There's a bunch going on our phone, and then and maybe we're doing a task while we're doing that. So we're so used to splitting, like splicing our attention and putting it a bunch of directions, that when we sit down to do one thing and we don't have part of our brain being occupied by something else, it's difficult.
Yeah.
And so that's where I think of it's kind of like your attention is just really scattered. And so for me, what I noticed is I would get myself really wound up if I wasn't listening to a podcast or, doing something in addition to my routine or whatever. So I think I had to dial it back. I had to make myself maybe just play music instead of something stimulating like a podcast.
Right.
But it's tricky because I still carve out so much time of each day, most days, to listen to podcasts, because I'm like you, or that I learn so much from podcasts and YouTube videos, and I'm not going to cut that out of my life because I see that it's a tendency for me to like kind of get wrapped up in that habit. However, again, back to the consciousness thing, I'm conscious of it. Therefore, I make choices that reflect my boundaries around that.
Yeah. Well, it's just everything moves in levels when it comes to like your awareness and trying to become a focused person. So for me, I guess that was level one, is like moving into that. And now I can find myself where I can sit and things can be quiet for a while. And I'm like, I'll realize it like 10 minutes in. I'm like, oh, I'm not even like listening to anything or watching anything. I've just been sitting here doing like this one thing. That's crazy. That was impossible for me earlier. And so I feel like meditation is sort of that final level and that thing that I'm really going to be trying to practice at, to kind of take that to the next level. But it's quite difficult. And,
super difficult.
But it was much more difficult before when I was hooked on always having something going. So it's gotten better.
And being aware of where you're at is also such a big chunk of it. So it's like what do they say what does it mean when somebody says like you're awake, you're woke? It's like, well, it just means you're conscious of more things than you used to be.
Right.
So you're conscious of the fact that you're not there yet, but you're getting there. And so that in of itself is like such a big step.
Right.
And you just become more aware of what you're aware of as you go.
Yeah.
It's, I don't think anyone can be quote unquote woke. It's like we're all just here in a process of getting more aware of ourselves.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah.
We're just trying.
Yeah.
We're just trying.
I'm one person.
I love that about podcasting though, because we're like, you sit here and we're in this conversation. There's nothing else happening. Especially when you put the headphones on, there's something that really like locks people in, and we're just like, this is what we're doing right now. And so it's so much easier to not just to speak something that is true and legitimate, and to think about what you're thinking, but also to listen in this type of format. I really like that. And I think that you can get that as a podcast listener. You can take away things because you feel like you're in that room with people who are focused on this conversation. So you're all a part of it all at once. It's phenomenal. But the thing I would really like to get into is breathing at some point. And I feel like you're probably a pro at the breathing. And I started messing around with a little bit of it, even just this last like week. and I still don't know what I'm doing. You're big on Wim Hof. Is that who you kind of go to for the breathing
I mean,
techniques and style?
I would like to say that. I've been very inspired when I hear Wim Hof talk. I think he recently was on a bunch of podcasts in the last 6 months, and I was really interested. Admittedly, I don't know very much of his work. I know he's a big proponent for, or is that even a word? He's a big supporter of breathing and just forcing a lot of oxygen into your cells so that you become more like alive, I guess. It's like when you're running, you're breathing, you're just so much more alert when you have more oxygen in your body. And us, especially these days, like I don't know about you, but sometimes when I'm like on my phone, I'll catch myself just scrolling and I'll be like, when was the last time I even took a breath? And if I am breathing, it's so shallow.
Just shallow.
And that's not
keeps you alive.
normal. Yeah, that's not normal. I mean, we're physical beings. We're supposed to be moving, which obviously prompts oxygen or intake, like for us to breathe. And if we're not doing that and we're just more idle, we're not breathing as much as we should be
Right.
for the right amount of oxygen in our blood, for the mental clarity. And so yeah, no, I haven't gotten into him that much, and I don't really follow anyone specifically. In my teacher trainings, we did go over pranayama breathing and the different methods. Like Nadi Shodhana is, it's alternate nostril breathing. So you would plug one nostril and inhale, and then plug the opposite nostril and exhale, and then kind of repeat that cycle just to, help balance the sides of your brain.
Interesting.
There's a few different methods for it. You can also make your exhales longer than your inhales, because when you exhale, that's telling your brain that you're safe. Because if you have time to make your exhale really long, you're not running away from something. Because when your inhales are longer and deeper, that's more like a exhilarating, we need to be on it, But if you're exhaling long, you're more calm.
So how long will you do it for?
I don't know. It depends. I usually will just do it at the beginning of my meditation just to set the tone. It gives me something to focus on so that my brain's not like squirreling around everywhere.
Right.
And so maybe just a few minutes of like dedicated breathing, and then I just let it kind of fade off naturally as, my brain calms down.
Do you get kind of high?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Lightheaded.
That's
yeah.
how I felt doing that. When I breathe deeply enough for long enough, I'm like, I'm very
Buzzing.
high right now.
Buzzing. Yeah,
I'm
Wim Hof
messed up.
says that. He'll say that you're like almost tingly in the fingertips too. Like you can get a little shaky.
Mm-hmm.
What is he? I heard him on the Lewis Howes podcast, and he had Lewis do. Do you know Lewis Howes?
Mm-mm.
He's a podcaster, one of those. But he had him do his breathing method for, I don't know, I think it was like a minute, and then he held his breath and did a bunch of push-ups, and he's like, oh my god, I feel like alive, like I'm high right now. And he's like, yep, that's your natural state. That's like a very good state for you to be in.
Right. I did think it was interesting. I learned a little bit about sort of the exchange between oxygen and carbon dioxide too, that it's not just about taking in more oxygen, but it's also about purging more carbon dioxide. But then there's some other interesting things that come along with raising your levels of carbon dioxide when you're holding your breath. And so I feel like Wim Hof is sort of playing with both of those things, which I find really cool. Because you're either flooding your body with oxygen or flooding it with carbon dioxide, one way or the other. And there's some interesting effects that kind of happen either way. But it's one of those things that, again, it feels like you have to know what you're doing to get started, but ultimately you're going to find out that you really don't. You just need to breathe.
Mm-hmm.
But it seems technical. It seems really interesting. There's this jiu-jitsu kind of famous guy, Rickson Gracie, who he was famous for jiu-jitsu, but also the way he did it, and the fact that he was really into yoga and breathing and all of these different things. And when you watch him do his breathing technique, it's incredible. It's like he's got control of his diaphragm and then also of his abs, and they are two separate things.
So you have a 12-pack?
Yes. Yeah. So he can exhale it fully and keep himself exhale, keep his diaphragm up, and then start wiggling his abs around and flexing them and moving around, because they're not connected in that same way.
What?
I am fascinated by that.
That's so cool.
I have yet to watch his documentary, but I've seen clips from it. It's called Choke, and I know that it's on Amazon Prime right now, so
nice.
I'll be watching it one of these days. But I've seen the clip of him breathing, and it's crazy.
That's so cool.
It's wild.
I know that I know that it's probably like a common misconception that we only breathe in oxygen, but we actually do breathe in quite a lot of carbon dioxide, and we use it. It's not just something. It's out there, and we do breathe it in, even though that's mostly what we exhale.
Yeah.
But I know that the emphasis on nasal breathing, like meaning your mouth is closed when you're breathing, is so important because our nose and our nasal, the whole situation around our nose, you are better able to, you're more efficient at using the oxygen when you breathe through your nose. And so more oxygen is taken into your cells when you breathe through your nose than through your mouth.
Yeah.
So I'm really trying.
Yeah.
I'm such a mouth breather.
Yeah.
I'm trying.
You're supposed to breathe through your nose. It's supposed to produce nitric oxide, which dilates your blood vessels and makes that transfusion sort of easier. But then it also, that's how we're supposed to treat all of our air. There's all these interesting theories. There was, I'm not going to remember the author's name, but he's got a book called Breathe, and it's entirely about that. I know he was on Joe Rogan talking about this, and the fact that even humans have the shape of our faces and noses have changed over time as we started to sort of become mouth breathers.
Yes.
That we're really supposed to breathe through our noses. And I had tried doing this for a while when I would run. Like if I was going on any sort of run, I was getting to a point where I could breathe through my nose and do like a 3-mile run just through my nose. The problem is if you get in any type of cold environment at all, it sucks.
Yep.
It has to be like warm and humid. And so here it's like impossible. I really can't keep up with it. But what I was finding as I was doing it, I was like, your diaphragm becomes so tired so quickly because you're working much harder to actually breathe through your nose to take in and expel the air. And then you also just sort of feel like you're shy on breath the whole time. Like you're just a breath behind where you want to be. And you have to get really comfortable with that feeling. But they've done all sorts of interesting tests where you're fine. You're completely fine with higher carbon dioxide levels. It really is just a comfort thing. Like we just have to get used to having jacked up carbon dioxide as we exercise.
Right.
And it is very hard. I try to do it when I'm rolling in jiu-jitsu. It's a big thing is like try to breathe through your nose for most of this high intense cardio thing because it keeps you far calmer. It keeps your heart rate down. But it's not easy.
Well, and I guess the idea is the more you train yourself to breathe through your nose. I mean, I think I heard that episode and he taped his mouth shut while he was sleeping. Yeah. He said over time, like at first, the first couple months is going to seem very challenging, but if you stick with it, your nasal passageways actually expand and become much bigger. And then eventually it's like no big deal. So I just need to get there.
He did all sorts of stuff too. Cause he also expanded his palate with like different retainers. And there's even like surgeries you can have to have your whole sort of mandible. I don't know. Is it mandible? Is that the right
I have no
Yeah.
idea. I've gotten into lately, there's even like tongue posture is a thing. I never knew that was a thing. Apparently your tongue is supposed to rest at the roof of your mouth. I didn't know that. But when you kind of suction your tongue to the roof of your mouth, then when you nasal breathe, it creates a vacuum so that it pulls the oxygen down into you and it makes it easier to breathe when the tongue's at the roof of the mouth. But because the tongue presses at the roof of the mouth, it creates a more upright posture in your chin, and it naturally helps expand the palate because it's making space for the tongue. I'm learning so much over quarantine.
Yeah.
I've been diving so deep in some Google searches.
These are all examples of one of those things where it's very hard to unhear this information too.
Yeah.
When you hear it for the first time and you're like, well, now I have to do that. And it's very hard to go back. And so that's again where I'm like, I need to shut down the information. I need to go listen to some podcasts that are about like space or different things that don't affect me directly, because I can't keep learning more health things, or else I'll just lose it. I'll just drive myself crazy trying to keep up.
And on the note of mindfulness and like consciousness, to me, at a certain point, it's like you're tipping over that point where you've taken in so much information and like you said, you want to implement it all. But at that point, now you're just thinking about all the information. Like if I catch myself without the tongue at the roof of my mouth, I start thinking about how my tongue's not at the roof of my mouth. And I'm like, now I'm not present anyway.
Right.
So it's like the more you try to implement at a time, the more distracted your brain's going to be.
Yeah.
So you have to take little pieces at a time. That's why I feel like really focusing in on different areas of health that are important to you and just going deep on those helps because, like you said, I'm not going for perfect. I don't even know if I want to live past 60, much less 100. Like, I'm just here for a little while, and I want it to be a very balanced experience.
Right. You just and really soaking in the things that help you day to day are probably the best things. Like starting with the things that reduce your anxiety day to day. That's the biggest thing, so that you're actually present and enjoying yourself. Then you can start to move into the levels of like, well, what will keep me healthier in the long run? Like you have to start with the most sort of immediate need. Um, it's just like anything else, just like any other type of like, if you're in some sort of emergency, you need to address the most important thing first, the quickest reaction to that thing. And sometimes we'll get tied up worrying about the thing that won't affect us for 20 years as opposed to the thing that would affect us today. And I think a lot of people can make that mistake, and I certainly do. The thing that I'm worried about is like, well, that's not really going to be a problem for another 30 years or so. Like your knees aren't really going to be a problem until then, you know.
Right.
What you need to do today is start to, you know, become happier, get a happier disposition, and start enjoying yourself a little more. But you know, I think you and I are on the same page in that way, in that we're just like, we can't help ourselves. We're just trying to take in more information and just become better and just make it all work better. And it's never going to really go like that. It's all finite. We got a finite amount of time to make these changes. But
because once you know that information's out there, then you can't become unaware that the information's out there.
Yeah.
So now you want it all.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's a whole thing. Balance. I feel like it all comes down to balance.
Yeah. Unless you're really good at lying to yourself, which
I'm not. I'm not good at lying,
either.
period.
I'm not either. I honestly, I think I envy people sometimes who can just sort of live in some bullshit because they're probably more relaxed than me.
Absolutely, but their ego is also having a field day.
That's true. That's true.
I've always been bad at lying. I remember like 3rd grade, I have this very specific memory of telling my teacher that I stole something, quote unquote. I took a project home that I was supposed to donate, and ever since then I'm like, yeah, I don't lie. Like I can't do something and not come clean about it.
Yeah. That's a good quality to have.
It's like what's the word? It's when it's, I don't know. It's inconvenient is what I'm trying to say.
Inconvenient.
Yeah.
Or what's the thing people do where they're not allowed to lie? It's
I don't know.
No, this is a thing. It's like extreme honesty, maybe.
They're not
You heard
allowed
this?
to, or it's like part of them.
No, it's like a thing people do. Here, I got
know.
this.
Thank God for Google.
Yeah, this is this type of podcast.
I feel like it's every time.
One day I'll have a helper who can help me do this. Radical honesty.
Radical honesty.
Apparently this was a book. But yeah, it's the practice of always being completely honest and refraining from telling even white lies.
I feel like that's not my natural state of being. I can't help it. I feel like my honesty gets me in trouble a lot of times.
Yeah. Well, but that's the thing, is the difference between sort of like white lies. So like, I remember I took a class in college that was about lying and like how to spot people that are lying, which was really interesting class.
Like shifty eyes and stuff.
It's not the things you would expect.
Okay.
Because it's way more about establishing like a baseline of like how someone acts and then seeing where they deviate from that baseline. So, but it's so hard to tell. And it's honestly, it's not like a real science. It's just sort of like sometimes you can see things. There was a really good show actually they made about this called Lie to Me. And it was about this investigator who was very good at this. But it wasn't ever like you get someone on the witness stand and you're like, I can prove you're lying. You know, what it really was like, because he could spot different lies, it would lead them to evidence that would then, you know, be able to convict someone of something, you know. It was phenomenal. Where are we going with it? Oh, but in this class, we also talked a lot about how white lies are crucial for humans to like interact and be nice to each other. Like politeness doesn't really exist if we're not allowed to lie about minor things. Like there is something to be said for like hiding your own discomfort with something in order to help someone else be more comfortable. It's like there's niceness within lying to an extent. But if someone asks me questions about things point blank, I have a very, very hard time lying about them.
Yeah.
And I think some people are really good at it. I think I don't feel like I would get along with someone like that who's a super good liar. I'd be very, very uncomfortable by that. But some people are really good at it. I don't know.
The white lies, that's what I mean. I think it gets me in trouble because I'm so ready to be honest that sometimes I miss those like social cues of like, oh, you were supposed to lie there. Like, just tell them what they want.
Right. Yeah.
I don't know. I think life's short. Like, just show up raw, show up honest, and you might make people sad, but ultimately you're probably just making them more conscious of something they were unaware of, and
Right.
you helped them in the long run.
Well, I think we get better at knowing where those lines are as we get older too.
Yeah.
I mean, I expect that you and I are both quite bad at knowing when is the time to lie or tell the truth, honestly. And I think that the real key as you go on in life is to learn when to be more and more yourself and to be honest, because you're going to see when it really matters and when it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
But we're just practicing right now. And I mean, it's almost kind of sad because by the time you get good at like being a human, you're about done anyway, aren't you? Like it takes a certain level of experience to become really good at just being a good human, and then you're about done. You can't really do the things you want to do anyway.
Yeah, I like to think that our timeline in terms of how long we stay alive kind of correlates to what we're here to learn. Like our consciousness is going to let us learn a certain amount, and once we're there and we're wise old people, that's why we fade out anyway. And we're done learning.
See, that supports the simulation theory really, really well. I just picked up a new simulation theory, which I've done this on the podcast before because I love simulation theory. The idea that we're in one, totally sold on it. But this person's concept was that we're all in our own simulation. So it's like a Truman Show simulation about unlocking something for your life,
Yeah.
and that we're all. So you're just in my simulation, apparently.
Yeah, I've gone a bunch of different routes throughout my life. These days, especially through yoga, I have taken on the very almost not very, but more spiritual side of things and thought, I believe in my spirit, and I just through different experiences in my life, I don't know, we can go there I guess if you want, but different experiences, I have been able to I've had moments where I am very clearly aware of the fact that I am not my physical body. And those moments have been always positive and always, what's the word? Like relieving, like always like oh, good, and so it helps me connect to the fact that I think I'm here on this earth to learn lessons, and I'm here to learn more about my awareness and to become more aware of myself. And then at the end of my life, I go on and do other stuff.
So you think there's something after
Yeah.
you die?
I struggle with the idea of death because my monkey brain really doesn't want me to die. That it's my brain is there. All of our brains are here. Number one rule for our brain is don't die. It's here to keep us alive. That's the tool of the brain. Make sure we know how to eat, think, and the whole idea of thinking is there, or the whole concept of thinking is there so that we can figure out how to not do what we did before that caused us harm, so that we stay away from death, or to get food, because if we don't get food, we die. So our brain is there to make sure that we stay alive, which is why our brain causes anxiety, because these days our life is so safe, relatively, right? Obviously before the pandemic.
Yeah.
It's still relatively safe.
Right.
Compared to like being out in the wild and like hunting for your food and, almost starving every day.
Yeah.
So because we aren't faced with just tons of threats all day, every day, our brain is still designed to make sure we don't die. And so it's always looking for something that's dangerous. And if it's not dangerous, it's going to look at things that are safe and question if they're dangerous.
Right.
And so, yeah, that was like a whole tangent. But
No, I liked it. But the other thing is that the brain isn't just trying to make you not die. It also could never have any conception of being dead or not thinking.
Right.
Like the brain doesn't know how to not think because it never has not thought.
Mm-hmm.
We have no idea what that looks like, the idea of sort of true nothingness.
Right. And so that's why that's whole nother layer of meditation is connecting to the fact that you are the awareness that's like outside of your brain, because you can become aware of your thoughts, right? And your thoughts happen in your brain. And when you can kind of back up beyond that, you realize I am watching my brain do its thing.
Mm-hmm.
So then who am I?
Right.
So it's like once you start spending more time in that state of just awareness, you start identifying with the awareness instead of the brain.
Yeah.
And that's where things get a little easier.
I can buy that. I like the idea that there's sort of like two ways of looking at consciousness. One being that like your brain creates your consciousness, and the other that it's like more like a receiver of consciousness, like it's just an antenna for something else. I think that those are both really interesting ways of looking at it. And ultimately, it doesn't really matter because at some point we will die, and then we'll either find out something or we won't.
Right.
Like we'll either see it all or we will not.
Right.
And it's not really going to matter, but for a few seconds, is it?
Yeah.
You know,
Absolutely.
And ultimately, you've got a lot of seconds in your life that do matter, where you can have happiness and pleasure and have new experiences and experience fear even, and so just do what you want with that time, because it's not going to matter much.
Yeah, and as spiritual as I
Else.
am these days, I mean, I don't follow any religion or anything. It's just kind of my own state of being. I still openly entertain the idea that spirituality was birthed out of our unwillingness to accept our mortality.
Yeah, sure.
So I think that maybe at some point that was kind of a human creation and a human concept that was created to help us cope with the fact that our brains are so against dying, and to help ease that anxiety around that. I don't know. For me, through different experiences in my life, some being, psychedelics, some being meditation, whatever, even just being in nature and like connecting to what I consider being like the overruling spiritual force that's out there. I tend to lean towards I think I'm here for a little bit and then I'm going somewhere else. But I couldn't even start to paint the picture for what that is. I have no idea. I don't make myself contemplate it too much. My dad luckily kind of set the premise really early. I was asking him about infinity and what happens after death. I was very young, and I remember it was nighttime and he looked up at the stars and he said, "Okay, picture the universe. Like, look up there and try to think of where space ends." He's like, "What happens? Is there just a wall somewhere and it stops?" And he's like, "But what's on the other side of the wall?" And I was like, "I don't know." And he's like, "Yeah, because our human brains aren't meant to think of infinity. Therefore, you just don't. And you trust that you're being taken care of and whatever happens, happens." And luckily that took me off the hook really early to try to find the answer for that, because I've accepted that my brain doesn't understand what infinity is, what infinite whatever is. So just don't even think about
That's
it.
an interesting way of thinking about it. I like that. The one thing we know for sure is that anybody who says they know absolutely doesn't know, because there's no way to know.
Except for maybe the people who like come back from death. I don't know.
Those people who have near-death experiences, yeah, but even those you can weirdly dismiss away because your brain starts chemical dumping on you.
Right.
So it's the same, and it's the same thing. You can't. That's actually a really interesting thing, because I feel like you have people who are sort of fundamental religious people who say, well, that person had a religious near-death experience. But then you can look at the chemicals that were dumped into their brain during that moment and say, no, they just got high.
Yeah, they were hard on DMT right there.
Exactly. So you can't sort of accept the premise of near-death experiences to support your religion and not support what happens during a psychedelic experience. Because they both have the same evidence. A lot of chemicals just flooded the brain, all right?
Yep.
So, but we're not, I don't know. We won't know. We're not really meant to know. I love the turn this conversation took. This has been fun today.
Aliens, death, the universe.
Aliens was my best way to get us out of COVID, especially because I just think but again, it's another one of those topics that we're not going to really know the answers to, just like anything else. We don't know about aliens or death or COVID. We don't know. Just try our best.
Aliens, death, COVID, who knows?
They're all kind of on the same level. Conspiracies. You're not going to know. What am I? I'm just a normal dude. I'm not going to know any of that stuff, but I can wonder about it, and I can take pleasure in wondering about it.
Exactly, and that's a healthy mentality.
Just exercise your brain, and I think it's fun too that we didn't. We got it. I love that we got into yoga, or a little bit into yoga and meditation, breathing, but we didn't. Like the last episode was all sort of yoga talk, and that's the thing too about like remote podcasts, is that I can like ask questions about things that like I know the person's interested in, but when you're sitting with someone in person, and especially if you're like having a beer, it opens the door to like so many more things that you would not have expected to talk about.
Right.
And that's my favorite part of talking with people, because everyone has got interesting thoughts on all these things, but we feel like we have to be one thing. We feel like we have to be one brand. Like we can only talk about this thing because we've got an Instagram. It's all going to match this one thing. But the truth is we're all wondering about all this shit all the time. I guess some people aren't, but I'm not that interested in talking with those people. I like people who like thinking about stuff all over the board. That's really what I'm into. Or actually, on the other hand, people can be really interesting when they're only focused on one thing. Like I've talked with professional athletes, and I'm like, oh, this is all you think about, isn't it? That's also kind of fascinating. That's also kind of cool.
People like that fascinate the hell out of me, because I grew up being like, I'm going to be an Olympic gymnast, and I'm going to be a movie producer, and I'm going to be all these things. I had a list of things that like you only do if that's your one thing. and I wanted all of it.
Right.
And obviously, I mean, I went a totally different route. I didn't want any of those things once I became an adult,
Right.
but I never as a child focused on any one or even handful of things.
Yeah.
It was all the things.
Right.
And so anyone who is able to just dedicate to one thing and become super pro at it, I love those kind of people
Yeah.
because it's almost like they're the alien. It's like,
Right.
what's happening here?
Yeah. So don't bring me anybody in the middle. I like people who are thinking about everything and people thinking about one thing.
Right.
That's what I'm interested in.
Yeah.
Those are strangers worth
This
meeting to me.
pandemic, I mean, it's something that I've noticed even just being online and like sharing my opinions about. I've learned to share not that many opinions online, but
Probably a good idea.
but sharing enough, you realize how many people are out there who are thinking the same kinds of things and just like so lost in the middle, lost in the sauce, you know?
Yeah. Yes.
Everyone's thinking right now.
The world is not what the internet makes the world look like, is it?
Absolutely not.
That's why I do this. It's a good reminder for me. I get real sad if I'm looking on social media and all I'm like is like, are you guys all just this polarized and all you think about is this one topic that's trending today? Nah, not at all.
Not
at all when you sit down at a table with someone. And that's of all the things that need to end with this COVID thing, it's that we need to get people back together again in person. It matters with their actual communities and not just spending time online sort of radicalizing themselves to all these ideas. Just need to be a
Right.
human again.
You definitely know the people who have been working from home for 9 months and have spent at least 8 hours a day on Facebook.
Yeah.
It's sad, man. Like I see a lot of people go down these they lose themselves in it. They
Yeah.
have totally lost everything they were about, everything they had, and they are just in it. And it's like, man, like, come camping with me for one weekend,
Right.
please. Like, I got you.
Get back to yourself. Well, I think that's a good note to leave people with today.
Yeah.
Is hopefully by the time this episode comes out, even things will look brighter, and you can get out and get your communities again, or just do what you can and just work on some of this meditation, this breathing, this really good stuff. It's not. I've said this on episodes before, but it's like the keys to a healthy mind and body are not really secrets. We kind of pretend like they're secrets so that we don't actually have to do them because we can be like, they're secrets. I don't know how to do it. It's real simple stuff that will get you back to feeling better.
Heck yeah.
Get off the social media, get some sleep, get some good food, spend some time with people you love. You're going to be all right. We're all going to be all right, I think.
That's what I've been saying this whole time. Like, just literally, I know you haven't. I'm talking to you. I know you haven't. Log off social media for, I'm not kidding you, 3 whole days. Don't go on for 3 days. Get outside, do some breathing, physical activity, see somebody you love, and I promise the world isn't as crazy as it seems.
Yeah. And if you're in Tucson, check out There Yoga.
Yeah, man.
And go get some outdoor yoga sometime once you're really able to get it back in the swing of things again.
Yeah, we're
I know
in
you will
it.
soon.
January is happening.
Good.
www.outthereyoga.com.
What's the date of the January one?
I think it's the 23rd. It's
Can I
like the
come?
second. Yeah, if you're still here, please.
Yeah.
It's going to be at a dope location. I haven't announced it yet, but I'll let you know once we're off.
Okay, cool. I better get myself in gear for that so I don't show up. I can show up and not know anything, right?
Absolutely. There's people who have never done yoga.
Okay.
There's people who hardly ever do yoga, and they just want the like event feel of it. So,
Okay.
yeah,
Cool.
you'd be good.
All right, I'll be there. I'll take some pictures while we're there, probably.
Yeah.
I think we'll be in town. If I'm in town, I'm going.
Heck yeah.
And I'll bring Andrea too.
It's at a beautiful location. You'll love it.
Sweet. All right. Tell people where they can find you online for the time where they are on social media before they take their little
Right.
break.
Yeah. I mean, I'm on Instagram. I don't use Facebook that much. Instagram at barefoot with Kye, like bare feet, barefoot with Kye. And then Out There Yoga is out.there.yoga.
Go check her out. I'll take a picture before I head out here. As always, you can find that at T Hickson Life on Instagram or Twitter. Thank you so much, Kye, for coming on the show.
Yeah. Thanks for coming on over.
Thanks, everybody, for listening. As always, we will see you on the next episode.